In Starfield, you're gonna come across many choices that can alter the fates of various characters and factions. But Starfield is a very large game. In fact, Starfield may have more choices than any other Bethesda game to date, so I wouldn't hold it against you if you weren't aware of the many choices which Starfield has but doesn't tell you. So, in today's video, we're going to take a look at 7 secret choices you didn't know you had in Starfield. Number 1. Have 2 lovers. One of the cornerstones of NPC interactions in Bethesda games is the romance options, and though Skyrim and Fallout 4 have enough bachelors and bachelorettes to satisfy everyone, Starfield is sorely lacking in the booty call department. Of all the interesting characters you find, only 4 of them are romanceable: Barrett, Sam Coe, Sarah Morgan, and Andrasia. Hell, with these numbers, I'd settle for the robot being included. What's worse is that whereas polyamory was the norm in Fallout 4, Starfield's characters are a little more clingy, and they won't tolerate you having multiple flings. Or so they say. Once you tie the knot with your second lover, your first romance will be a little more than upset. They'll threaten to leave and stop being your companion. You can ask for a second chance, which will prevent you from having further relationships with other partners. Or if you have a high enough persuasion skill, you can convince them that an open relationship isn't so bad. Although it may seem like they're still in a sour mood by the end of the conversation, sleeping with both partners will reveal that going skin to skin with either lover is a-okay now. Number 2. Meet your parents at the strip club. Although all the traits are unique in their own way, nothing comes close to the kid stuff traits in terms of entertainment value. Not only will you finally have parents who love you, but they'll also dish out a plethora of rewards and entertainment value that make the 2% of credits you send them every week more than worth it. But I'm sure most players opted to pass on this trait due to just that, and doing so will make you miss out on all the secret encounters that could have happened if you pick this trait. One of the more entertaining and easily the most awkward encounters with them can be at the Astral Lounge in Neon. The Astral Lounge is a nightclub known for its raunchy dancers, copious use of Aurora, and shady clientele. It's the last place you'd expect to find your wholesome parents, who otherwise spend their days with poker nights and making their child feel embarrassed. But this makes finding them here all the more hilarious. Your father even begins to get mad at you for going to such a shady place, despite them coming there before you. Well, at least the situation is dealt with quickly, as you go on your way pretending you saw nothing. Number 3. Join the Disciples. One of the better side missions that you can find yourself doing is the Showdown. Acquired in Neon, this quest has you joining a street gang known as the Strikers and taking down the notorious and psychotic rival gang known as the Disciples. And when I call these people psychotic, I mean it. They're about as crazy as your character after quicksaving. They take what they want by force and don't care about the casualties that get in the way. Knowing this, even the hardest of criminal characters will want to see this gang be thrown overboard Neon and turned into seafood. But maybe your character is a cut above the standard criminal and is instead a bona fide villain. If that's so, then there's a chance that you'll befriend the Disciples. Towards the end of the quest, you're ordered by the Strikers' leader Briggs to begin a full-blown gang war. What this amounts to is going to various corners of Neon and killing any Disciples you find. But the last area you visit, you'll notice that these Disciples are not as aggressive as the last few. Talking to them will present you with an offer. Betray the Strikers and in return, you'll be rewarded with 9,000 credits and a permanent place in the gang. Number 4. Get a hidden reward. Collecting snow globes in Starfield can be somewhat compared to the insect jars that you could find in Skyrim. But unlike the bees and butterflies that you collect in that game, the snow globes in Starfield serve a purpose. There are a total of 13 snow globes that you have to find across landmarks within the Sol system, most of which are marked on your map after reading a specific book. Once you do finally get around to finding 13 of these ornaments, a special text will pop up on your screen that reads as follows: "You have seen sights on Earth, the Moon and Mars that no one has seen collectively for over 100 years. It has inspired you to make a spacesuit to commemorate your extensive exploration." After closing this text box, a new set of armor is added to your inventory. I don't know how my character managed to make such a fine piece of armor with no spacesuit design training, but I'm not complaining, as this spacesuit is packing some serious buffs. It has higher stats across the board than that of the Mantis spacesuit, which is a piece of legendary armor that's obtained after going through an entire questline. And unlike the old Earth spacesuit, the Mantis armor doesn't leave you with an entire collection of snow globes at your disposal, which makes it objectively worse, even excluding the massive stat increase. Number 5. Join the Crimson Fleet. The Crimson Fleet questline is not only one of the best questlines in Starfield, but one of the best of any Bethesda game, period. The questline has you working as a double agent for the United Colony System Defense, or SysDef for short. This is Starfield's version of the CIA, or any other secret intelligence service. During this, you'll be infiltrating pirates known as the Crimson Fleet as a recruit, and working with them in finding a legendary treasure. What makes this quest so great is the amount of agency you have over the questline's outcome. We've come a long way from being forced to kill the Emperor, and the Crimson Fleet questline has multiple endings depending on the choices you make. It's rather fitting then that the first choice you make in the questline has to do with you beginning the questline. Depending on what kind of character you're playing, you'll likely come about the questline in two very different ways, not knowing the second option. If you're playing as a somewhat good Samaritan who keeps his nose clean from any smuggling, murders, or anything else that can land you into a cell, then you'll likely stumble onto the quest as an accessory to the UC Vanguard questline, where Captain Tuala will mention the US SysDef during your initiation with the Vanguard. However, if you're playing a character with a personality and a penchant for being on the wrong side of the law, then you're more likely to meet Commander Ikande on opposite sides of an interrogation room, where your crimes will be forgiven in exchange for working with SysDef. The cool part about this choice is how naturally both paths work. Although it may seem like reluctantly joining SysDef as a prisoner seals your fate as a partisan for the Crimson Fleet, I prefer to see it as a chance of redemption. Conversely, your UC loyalist character will be far more interesting if they end up being charmed by Delgado and his ragtag family and betray the United Colonies. Number 6. Convince Captain Petrov. In the main quest, No Sudden Moves, we're told by Vladimir to steal an artifact from Captain Petrov. It turns out space is big, and Constellation isn't the only one looking at these artifacts. But unlike Sarah Morgan and her crew, Petrov seems to only want the artifact as a trophy, rather than to do anything with it. So, you're given the task to infiltrate his ship, the Scow, and take it from him, whether by persuasion or by force. Killing Petrov is strongly discouraged, so players will opt to talk to him and run the risk of failing his persuasion checks, which will result in you running around the ship looking for any clues you can find. But a far more direct and faster option is not known to most players. Upon your first meeting with Petrov, immediately attack him to low health and he will surrender. Not only will this make Petrov give you the exact location of the artifact, but he'll also be generous enough to make his men stand down so you can freely explore the ship unbothered. Number 7. Board a haunted ship. There are many Elder Scrolls references in Starfield. In our last video, we already talked about the prisoner named Delvin Mallory and the plants that look similar to Nirnroot. However, no other reference is quite as detailed or spooky as the secret haunted ship you can visit as a random encounter. During your travels across space, you may come across a derelict United Colony ship, and it already becomes spooky when you hail the ship and your only response is a distorted laugh. Upon boarding the ship, you'll find that all of the crew has violently been killed by someone or something. Further investigation reveals this ship is rumored to be an urban legend with the UC Navy, known as the Pale Lady. Are you starting to see the reference? This ship became famous during the Colony Wars, where the ship was found floating aimlessly across space with all of the crew dead from unknown circumstances. Afterward, the ship was decommissioned and sold off for civilian use. However, the hauntings never ended. Scattered audio logs reveal that, much like its Skyrim counterpart, crew members began to have the same dream of a pale lady. Eventually, dreams turned into hallucinations, and many of the crew went mad. This is all up until you arrive, and it's already too late. And the ship isn't crawling with amazing loot, so most players probably just left after exploring around for a little bit. But if you stick around for long enough, then the menacing laughs of the Pale Lady can start to be heard in your head as well.
Subscribe to Fall Damage, you milk drinker.